set the ball rolling and to get the proceedings to work, may I please invite Dr. Arun Arora, our chairman, to bless us and say a few words. Dr. Arora, please.
Thank you, Dr. Bhatia. Raju, I must say it's becoming more and more embarrassing. Every year when you start introducing, I really start believing in what you said. So maybe next year, please let me be on the ground. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. With you and with your help, let me start by, I'll make an effort to describe what we are going through, and then let us together try to decipher or propound a hypothesis, I might say, on what we are looking around us. If we go back and look at the history, first perhaps there was Stone Age, which went for thousands of years, and then we had the Industrial Age, and then Adam Smith happened, the Tin Lizzie happened, and many industrial revolutions. So almost 200 years this Industrial Age continued, or even more. And then we came to Information Age, when people started talking of mainframes, then people started talking of PCs, then people started talking of net, etc., etc. So it took more than 200 years to jump from one age to another. Then what happened was, after Information Age, that is, took 200 years from Stone Age, and Industrial Age continued. And from Information Age, we took about 10 years when Michael Wolff wrote the entertainment economy, and the world started taking notice of how big the entertainment economy was, the largest economy in the world, and so on and so forth. And then from that, it took only, let's say, 10 years or less when we started looking at, and people started calling, Innovation Age. Now we are living through the Innovation Age. Those who will innovate will survive. And we heard a lot of hypotheses during this time. People spoke about paradigm shift. People spoke about tectonic shifts. People spoke about world is flat, world is interconnected, and so on and so forth. And perhaps everything was correct at that time. And I remember that during those years when I used to work with the Economic Times, the senior leadership team used to be proud in reading the trends. And they say our combined skill lies in not telling the people what's happening, but in telling our readers what's about to happen so that they can be ready and take advantage of those times. And that was called reading the trends. Now, what are we looking around us today? There are no trends. For a trend to get established, you need some time before something, some thought, some idea, some service becomes a trend. Now, one thought comes, and before it could become a trend, there is another thought that comes. So I don't know what's happening. There's something happening, surely. Now, some of us may have read the newspapers, although Dr. Bhatia started the event quite early in the morning, and rightly so. But the first editorial in Times of India, the editorial page, first lead article, is about the collision of two black holes, the Einstein story, the gravitational waves, and we read that a little bit earlier, and then what's happening in Switzerland. There is that CERT experiment, there is this anti-God matter, the antimatter, anti-God particle. So there is something monumental that's happening around us. Let me come to another aspect closer home as what we are seeing today. I have a grandson, Rohan. when Rohan was about 5 years old, I would find her mother calling her and say, look, I don't know how to load this particular software. My laptop is stuck, my notebook is not working. Can you explain to me how I can make this presentation? Or my wife, his grandma, would call him and say, look, Rohan, I've forgotten my password. There are a plethora of passwords, so I don't remember. Can you tell me what that password was? And so he could tell. My wife was very fond of telling people that, look, we have a smart kid. Now, in my business, which is running preschools, there are children 1.5 to 5.5 years old, and I'm finding them very, very smart, much smarter than what Rohan was at that age. I'd give you an example. We believe in rights of children, and I surely hope that all of you do as well. Now, last year, a 4-year-old child in an annual event of one of the schools, we have 50 schools, comes on the stage and narrates a story and says, we went to the beach with the family. I wanted to play in the sand, but my mother did not let me play. I have the right to play in the sands. Now, guess what would have happened? His mother stood up and started crying. And he said, surely, I now know that their children have rights, and I probably denied him the right to play in the sand. So what would we call a smart child? He is able to express. Another child, about 2.5 years, not 2.5 years, we call toddlers. The guy drew something, because he cannot express well, but he's expressing. We believe children have 100 languages, spoken and unspoken. So the guy drew something, and we asked, David, what is this? Because we couldn't figure out what that was. And he says, you know, yesterday I had pain in my stomach. I said, so what is this? And he says, this is shit. You know, that's what, but the child is expressing. He's trying to tell you what he sees around, and he's not afraid to confess or to convey what he wants to convey. So what would you call smart child, smart kid? We all know children or youngsters who are coming into our organizations, and we must believe what we really feel, truly feel. They are smarter than what we were at that age. Some of them we feel are smarter than what we are today. And that's a fact of life. So what is happening around us? We read about the driverless cars. We read about so many things which we could not have thought. So it appears to me that there is something significant happening at this point of time. That things which we did not know or which we did not think of are likely to happen, and we are most likely to see those things. So that brings me back to then, what is it? Perhaps a bigger change is taking place than what we had earlier called paradigm shift or tectonic shift or whatever. So for the sake of a better word, perhaps let me call it a dimensional change. It's so monumental. And what is better to be understood is, we could even call it this dimensional change, as Dr. Bhatia would like to call, and the conference is centered around it. They're calling it smart change. So this monumental change or this smart change is coming around us, ladies and gentlemen, and we have to get up and take notice. How do we cope up with this change? What would be our greatest challenge? Because if we do not change, then we would be passed by our companies, we would not be able to help ourselves, we will not be help our companies, we will not, neither will we sustain nor will our companies be sustainable. So it's a big challenge. And what is the biggest challenge to my mind is first to unburden, unshackle ourselves from the legacy beliefs. That legacy burden that we are carrying over hundreds of years, generation after generation advising us things which, as the times have changed, have either become obsolete or are at the fringe of falsehood or perhaps false and farce. Not to give you a few examples. For instance, how many of you have heard identify your weaknesses and make them your strengths? Can you please raise your hands? Almost all of us. The majority of us have heard that. Ladies and gentlemen, nothing could be worse than believing in this, because weakness will always be a weakness, no doubt how much you turn upon it. You can never make it a strength provided you define the strength properly. Strength is doing something repeatedly, not getting bored, not offering that service that diminishes in quality, and always remain happy. If we work to our strengths, we will always be happy, and therefore we will progress, therefore we'll be doing better work. And in this day and age, weaknesses could be outsourced. I don't know the figures, I'll hire a smart accountant. So who would keep the figure work with me? But if I know the strategy, I'll work with the strategy. That'll make me happy. So perhaps these are called fringes of falsehood, half-truths, what you may call. Other, do one thing at a time. Now, most of us would have heard again, do one thing at a time, as my father told me, his father perhaps would have told him, my teacher told me. And I made the mistake perhaps in the initial stages of telling the people I mentored, look at our children. The child is working on a comp, listening to music, and occasionally also looking at the television and seeing what the cricket, watching the tennis or watching the cricket, and he can do all three things. In other words, multitasking is the new mantra, and he's doing it without any difficulty. So do one thing at a time, where does it land us? Another one. Work hard. All of us were told, work hard, work hard, work hard. And at least I remember, I was told, work hard and you will retire one day at 50 if you work harder, or whatever, 55, 58, whatever that age was. And then you can retire, you can travel the world, you can enjoy the fruits of your hard work. What's happening today? I'm 70, ladies and gentlemen, 70 plus, and I'm still working as hard as I used to, and I'm still not retired. So where is that truth gone? And most of us, mind you, if you want to be healthy of mind, healthy of body, you would need to continue working. So then they said, okay, work hard is perhaps, I don't know where it is, work smart. Again, coming to Dr. Bhatia's hypothesis, smart. Another thing, there are many examples, so I would give just last one and forget about the others, is during the industrial age, Robert Frost wrote a famous poem, The Path Less Traveled. And we all remember that, and we must have heard it several times. For the sake of convenience, I'll quote it once more. Two roads diverged in wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this was industrial age phenomena. Today, we don't have to take one road. We can do this and that. We can take both the roads. And we all know this and that is more powerful than this or that. So where does that truth belong? So which means, ladies and gentlemen, time has come to reflect. we have to do a lot of introspection and reflection if we have to be successful, if we have to be relevant, if we have to make and keep our companies relevant, if we have to compete and sustain our companies in this age and time where everything is changing at once. So this program could not have been organized at a better time. I can only say that each one of us will have to reflect and come up with our own solutions. I would urge you, ladies and gentlemen, to pay deep attention to the proceedings that would go on, the thoughts that would be exchanged with you during these few days, and then go back home and reflect. I wish you good luck in finding your answers, and I wish you a good Congress. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.